Janus-Ception, January 15, 2021. John the Bond coming to you from beautiful Bansko, Bulgaria. What a place, goodness gracious me. And today we're talking about a few important things. Has John the Bond been somewhat two-faced with regards to Marcus Allen? Who are JLB's three truth uncles, and are those individuals still worth listening to? And at the end of the day, is this not all just entertainment? Those are some of the questions we're going to talk about here at JLB alternate member video number 64. And there were 32 member videos before we switched to this code. So we're up to almost 100 member videos in the space of 5 years. It's crazy. And so we're going to talk about a much loved member here at johnthebond.com, Dante from New York, who's been here since longer than just about anyone. And some of his criticisms of me recently, which I think might be valid. They might actually be valid criticisms. So we'll come back and talk about that. We'll talk about January and Janus, the Roman god of Janus, and the Seattle New Year's Eve event, which featured what appears to me to be a reference to Janus, and some of the crazy things that are going on in the world today. Basically, we're going to cover a whole lot of stuff in this video, which I hope to keep to 15 or 20 minutes. I'll probably release it as an audio as well, if it does go more than 10 or 15 minutes. But this is not some super important video. This is not a life-changing video. Not that any of my work is necessarily life-changing, but this isn't particularly important. It's a little bit inside baseball. But especially for those of you who take this scene seriously, who've been here for a while, I think you might find some of this interesting, perhaps even a little bit illuminating. Let's see. Let's find out. It's 10 p.m. local. And I'm staying up very late tonight because the cricket's on, but because of the time zone I'm in, I've got a lot of time to pass, don't I? And it's nice and cozy down here in the semi-basement apartment that I live in. Semi-basement, I've got windows, but there's just something about being like a meter or two down into the earth that makes it, like I'm in the corner, I'm in the corner of the apartment complex, and just something about it. Also got like a really cool kick-ass light. And there's just something about this apartment, it just feels nice and cozy. So I'm going to pass the time. Might have myself a couple of quiet Budweisers, the Czech version, not the American version. No offense to American beer fans. And make a little video. So as you can see, I've got my notes all ready here, and I kind of put together my plan for what I was going to do. So this should be pretty straightforward. Before we get into any of that though, let's start off with a little bit of fun and ask the people who run the show. Let's pretend this is, I don't know, March of last year, and ask them, hold on, you want us all to stay home and not go to work to save us from a killer Chinese virus for how long?
2 weeks.
I see. So you're saying that if somebody gets exposed to the virus, then they can potentially transmit it to other people for up to how long?
2 weeks.
I see. So we just need to remove civil liberties and people's abilities to run their business, and the way that we live our lives really for this 1 in 100 year event, but it's only going to be short term. It'll only be for, how long did you say?
2 weeks.
I see. So March of 2020, this should all be over, by April, because, it's about March, and if we start giving everything up now to save us for the future, this is all like a sacrifice for the future. This is a short-term sacrifice for the benefit of the future, so that soon things can be better again. And the sacrifice is for how long?
Excuse me? 2 weeks.
Yeah, of course it wasn't for 2 weeks. And I wonder if how many of you out there watching or listening can be completely honest with yourselves, and hopefully with us here as well at johnthebond.com in the comment section below. Did you fall for the 2 weeks? Did you fall for the Chinese propaganda? Did you, at first? Because guys, I've fallen for stuff myself. I fell for weapons of mass destruction back in 2000, was it 3? I want to say 2003, yeah, about that. I fell for that. Now, in my defense, at the time, I was like a 16-year-old kid, 15, 16, yeah. I fell for it completely. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't fall for this nonsense, because I noticed, hold on, the government and the media want me to be scared, and they want to change the rules. No, I've been through this before. No, I've been through this before. I don't care what all the other humans around me are doing. I don't care what they're scared of. I don't care what they believe. No. Government and media trying to make me scared at the same time? No. I don't think so, Buster. And that's why I was the first in the world that we know of. I could be wrong. There could be others out there. But from what we know, I was the first in the world to say this. This coronavirus news story is in fact a hoax. You do know this by now, don't you? And of course at the time I was in Chiang Mai, and that was like the first of my 2 dream destinations for this little trip. And I didn't know if I'd get there in the middle of 2019 because this site wasn't doing very well, and maybe I as a person probably wasn't doing as well as I would have liked, and I didn't know if I'd make it to Chiang Mai, but I did. Went to the Nomad Summit there. Little did I know at the time that I'd eventually make it to Bansko, Bulgaria. Just crazy stuff, man. And thanks to those of you who left comments on my little walk and talk from yesterday. But the point here is a lot of you guys did fall for the coronavirus nonsense at first, and that's entirely reasonable. Let me know in the comment section below, at what point did you realize this is a hoax? At what point did you realize that this is all a complete load of nonsense? The reason I ask is because I've got a lot of stuff wrong, not just with johnthebond.com, but just with my whole life in general. I've got lots of things wrong, man. However, as soon as this coronavirus stuff started, I called it a hoax. I didn't know how big a hoax it would be, of course, and how far this nonsense would go. But I don't want to use the word pride or proud, but there's something cool for me to be able to look back and go, no, I called this sooner than anybody I know. Back when people were falling for this, oh, people are falling over, people are falling down. Remember they were telling us that they were welding people into their houses? I'm like, do you actually believe that? Like, I've never been to China, okay? I've lived with some Chinese people. Guess what? They might be very different to us, but they're not that different. No one's getting welded into their freaking houses, okay? Why would you believe that? Oh, shit. We just believe the craziest shit, man, because we're very suggestible as humans. We're very suggestible. Very suggestible. All of us, myself included. And when there's fear about, man, it's like, it's almost like telepathy or some kind of ability for humans to share things non-physically, affect each other's states. And when even the awake people are scared of the virus, everyone falls for it. And not everyone fell for it, but a lot of people, including some people watching this or listening to this right now, they did fall for it, if they're being honest. And at a certain point they realized, hold on a second, come on now. What? Hold on. This was meant to be for how long again?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Things
are getting hotter each night. L-tryptophan is going out, and it gets worse. The rebels.
And then they realize there's a problem here. And that's actually what I think brought a lot of you to johnthebond.com, a lot of the new cohort from 2020, when you realized, hold on, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. And all of a sudden, that crazy mofo who says everything's a hoax, supposedly, he's actually right about this one. This is a hoax, so go check him out. And here you are at johnthebond.com, the best part of a year later. I think that's part of it. In fact, many of you have said exactly that. So, in a way, there's that silver lining to the whole thing. But enough about all of that, because for all of the good things about JLB, there are some bad things. And maybe one of the bad things is that he can be a little bit two-faced. Maybe. Before we listen to the criticism of me, which I think is probably a valid criticism, before we listen to it, let's give some context. Marcus Allen is this guy from Pennsylvania in the northeast of the United States. He's been a truth podcaster and video maker, and I guess to a small extent, a writer as well, for the best part of a decade. In fact, he claims even longer than that, I think. But as far as I can tell, when I do my research, my background on him, it's about a decade, which is super impressive. That means he was doing work years before I even got here. He was onto No Planes. He was onto the victims, the fake victims, and a whole bunch of other stuff. In fact, there was a period there where he could be fairly described as the world's biggest skeptic. He could fairly be described that way until John the Bond came onto the scene. Okay, that's just being honest, just being reasonable, giving your thoughts in the comment section below. I've spoken to him several times. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Now, one of his biggest fans, one of Marcus Allen's biggest fans, is a guy called Dante from New York, who has been on this website for a very long time. In fact...
So how long do you plan to stay on Mars?
2 weeks.
Have you brought any fruits or vegetables onto the planet?
2 weeks.
Excuse me?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.